Good evening. My name is Christina Manthe. I'm the president of the Jefferson County League of Women Voters, and I'd like to welcome you to the 2023 Wheat Ridge Candidate Forum. We are proud to offer this in conjunction with the City of Wheat Ridge. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan, grassroots organization working to protect and expand voting rights and ensure everyone is represented in our democracy. We empower voters and defend democracy through advocacy, education, and litigation at local, state, and national levels. The goal of the forum is to present the views of the candidates in a fair, nonpartisan setting so that you, the voter, can make an informed decision. This forum is being recorded. I will be serving as your moderator this evening. The forum will be videotaped, live streamed, recorded, and posted to the city's YouTube page and social media, the League's website and social media, and YouTube channel, and Vote 411, a National League resource for election information. I'd like to remind everyone that private recordings of the event are not permitted. As I said earlier, this is the 2023 Wheat Ridge Candidate Forum. This year, Wheat Ridge voters will elect councilors for Districts 1, 2, 3, and 4, as well as a city clerk and a city treasurer. The election is nonpartisan. We also have an issue on the ballot which we will cover later in the forum. All candidates whose names appear on the ballots have been invited to attend. Jenny Snell is joining us via Zoom as she is out of town today. The views expressed during this forum will be those of the candidates, not the views of the Jefferson County League of Women Voters or the city. We take no stand in support or opposition to the candidates. Our forum is divided into two sections. One forum for the city council positions and one forum for the city clerk and city treasurer. After the candidates forum, we will provide a brief overview of the Wheat Ridge ballot issue. We will begin each section with an opening statement from each of the candidates, followed by a number of questions for each of the candidates. Candidates will take turns responding to the questions and will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. Each candidate will then end with a 2-minute closing statement. And now let's hear from the candidates themselves. We will begin with the candidates for City Council. We have 6 candidates for City Council running for a 4-year term. Clarence Fullard and Jenny Snell are running for District 1. Rachel Holton is running for District 2. Corey Stites is running for District 3, and Larry Matthews and Dan Larson are running for District 4. Each of the candidates will have 2 minutes for an opening statement, 2 minutes to answer each question, and 2 minutes for closing comments. We will start with Clarence. Clarence, your opening statement, please.
First, thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum, and to the citizens of Wheat Ridge. Thanks for being here and thanks for tuning in. I also want to thank the city clerk's office for all their hard work pulling the election together. I know how difficult of a process that is, and I'm proud of the work y'all do to make this run so smoothly. It's an exciting time to be civic-minded, and City Council is the most important platform there is right now to foster positive change in our communities. The question I get most when I'm talking to friends around the neighborhood is, why am I running, or what's my platform? And it's hard to capture that in an elevator speech, isn't it? Because there's so many reasons why I'm running. For me, I like to start by always telling folks that as a father, I want to make sure that I leave Wheat Ridge in better shape than how I found it for my kid. And as I've grown to know all my neighbors and made friends around District 1, I want to leave it in a better place for them too. Because they've encouraged me to be here today running to represent them at City Council because they trust my judgment and they believe that I'll be a strong voice for them. I'll start by telling you why I'm a great candidate. In my day job, I'm a respected leader in my field because of my strong work ethic and commitment towards civil service. My line of work requires me to oversee and think critically about large government budgets that affect things like fisheries and water quality in the Colorado River. I manage 9 to 5 a budget nearly half the size of the city's entire budget. So I'm experienced, and in my day job, I've had to make hard choices about funding and that experience has taught me to be pragmatic. That's a word I embrace because it embodies wisdom, experience, and courage to make hard trade-offs. I can translate broad and vague ideas into thoughts and actionable measures. I'm responsive and I'm solution-oriented, and these are qualities that I think we need in our city council to get things done with the short time council is ever in session. I'm knowledgeable about our city's government here in Wheat Ridge. I'm a Wheat Ridge 101 graduate, great program the city offers, and I currently serve on the Wheat Ridge Liquor Control Authority Board, where I interact with our businesses.
Thank you, Clarence.
Thank you.
Jenny, your 2 minutes, please.
Hello and good evening, Wheat Ridge. You've caught me on a very rare time that I'm not actually in Wheat Ridge. So I'm very glad to be able to be here with you virtually. I'm so grateful to the League of Women Voters and the City of Wheat Ridge for allowing me to participate virtually. My name is Jenny Snell, and I am running for City Council in District 1, and I'm very honored to be doing so. My wife and I have lived in Wheat Ridge just shy of 10 years. Next February, we'll celebrate our 10 years in Wheat Ridge. And we love this community so much. I have such a deep and abiding love for our community and for its residents. And my decision to run for city council has come from doing a lot of different activities through volunteering and working with our community in different ways. I am very happy to be taking this next step. And I can tell you just from my short time in being a formal candidate for city council and talking to folks and campaigning and talking with our residents, I couldn't be more excited about the next step and preparing to be on city council. To answer that question, just really briefly, why am I running for city council? I feel like our city council currently has done a lot of incredible work, and I would like to just be a part of the next iteration and the next bit of work that gets done and continue that momentum and progress. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Rachel, your opening statement, please.
Great, thank you so much. My name is Rachel Hulteen, and I'm excited to be running for re-election to serve District 2 in the great city of Wheat Ridge. Thank you, League of Women Voters, for hosting this tonight. Your role in our democracy is incredibly important, especially at the local government level. I was thinking about what to say tonight, and I never run out of things to say, but I was reflecting on when I was sitting here 4 years ago, hoping that I would be elected to serve District 2, and little did I know we were 6 months from the onset of COVID. And when I won, my vision for my 4 years serving this community looked very different than the 4 years I ended up serving behind me. And what I learned from being newly elected and facing the enormous crisis of COVID is that this community is extraordinarily resilient, and we're resilient because we have good governance. We have had an amazing council the last 4 years that's worked very collaboratively to solve our community's problems. We have great staff, but at the end of the day, we have a great community that really, from the residents to the businesses to the different agencies, we really work together, and I am just really excited to get to do that for another 4 years. There's no other place than Wheat Ridge that I'd like to do that. I just want to mention a couple things that I'm especially proud of the last 4 years. I am really excited that we started Regenerate Wheat Ridge, which was a $50,000 grant, which we've leveraged into a flourishing sort of reblooming of our agricultural practices and happiness gardens. Money for active transportation investments has been extraordinary. We were recognized as an All-America City for the good work we've done as a community. We passed a resolution condemning racism and hate, which has turned into our Race and Equity Task Force recommendations, which we adopted. And I'm most proud of leading on the policy for our affordable housing fund that we adopted and have used to help create housing for 24 people in District 2. Thank you so much.
Corey, your opening statement, please.
Thank you, and I also want to thank the League of Women's Voters and our city staff for putting on this forum tonight. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Corey Stites. I've had the opportunity and the great pleasure to represent District 3 for the last 4 years on City Council. I believe most people kind of know my story. I grew up here in Wheat Ridge. I was kind of lucky enough to grow up with my grandfather being the mayor here, a very popular mayor, and my dad, as I was a young adult, being a city council member here for about 10 years. So I've kind of grown up in these chambers, and it's really fun to be a part of this council, because this is a collaborative council, and this is something that I take a lot of pride in as serving as Mayor Pro Tem the last year, is that we've been able to, the last 4 years, even through a pandemic, even through a cyber attack, we've been able to do a lot of good stuff for the Wheat Ridge residents. Kind of like Councilor Holteen said, the last 4 years didn't look exactly like I had envisioned them, but I'm most proud of the resiliency from our community and the fact that we were able to adapt and come out of COVID a lot stronger than we were when we went in. As a business owner, somebody who's had some challenges with the city of Wheat Ridge in the past and the building department, things like that, I am excited when I have business owners and construction crews and brand new businesses opening all over the place come to me and say, we're opening stores all across the Front Range, but when we work in Wheat Ridge, we work with a professional staff, and they're excited to come here and do business with us. So as a city councilor, that's something that I'm really proud of, is that people love doing business with our city. As we move forward, we want to make sure that we start to invest in our infrastructure. What was good 50 years ago needs a lot of updating now, and we're looking at with our streets, with our roads, with our sidewalks, and as our population gets younger and as our population gets more active, we want to make sure that we have a city that can provide those services for them. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Larry, your turn now.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody in the audience for being here and taking the time to come down and see us. Good evening to you all, and good evening to you at home. My name is Larry Matthews, and I would be privileged to serve you again as your District 4 City Councilor. I first moved to Wheat Ridge in 1970 when I married Carol, who is a Wheat Ridge native. She has filled me in a lot on the background and the history of Wheat Ridge. We've been married for 54 years, have 2 daughters, 7 grandchildren, and 7 great-grandchildren. Carol and I have been in our current home for 40 years. We have a saying, you buy and die in Wheat Ridge. After all, who would want to live anywhere else? I worked in the construction industry for most of my career. In 1996, I was the project manager for the 30th Avenue widening project, where we converted it to the current 3 lanes. I later became a vice president with that firm. I have years of experience with large budgets and fiscal responsibilities and getting things done. I started my apprenticeship as a city councilor in 2015 here in District 4. As I study current council agendas and minutes, I find that I am in a unique position with my past experience to hit the ground running. I would like to continue my efforts to make our community an ever better place to live and raise a family. I was, in my last term, and will continue to be, very focused on representing my constituents and the best interests of our city. I have years of experience being a resident in Wheat Ridge, a business leader, and a representative of the people. And now that you know who I am, I would surely like you to vote for me, please. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I got a little out of order. I apologize. Larry, would you like? Dan, I'm sorry. My apologies.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Dan Larson. I'm running for City Council to represent the residents and businesses in District 4. The city of Wheat Ridge is a great place to live, and I am proud to call it home. Since announcing my campaign a few weeks ago, I've been meeting with my neighbors and the owners of local businesses. Tonight, I will discuss some of the issues facing Wheat Ridge and how these issues can be addressed through a positive approach and the highest concern for protecting public value.
Thank you. And now for the questions. Each of you will have 2 minutes to respond. We're going to rotate the order in which candidates speak so that everyone has a chance to go first. Here's our first question. What do you love the most about living in Wheat Ridge, and what steps could you take in your position to preserve and protect these things? Jenny, you're first.
Wonderful, thank you. It's such a hard question to say what's one single thing that's my favorite thing of Wheat Ridge, but I would say my favorite thing is the way that you can get involved to the extent that you want to be involved in Wheat Ridge. When I moved here almost 10 years ago, I met a few folks and started showing up to meetings and volunteering and going to events and learning about the organizations that make the city what it is. And then I started learning about how the city operates. I got to be a part of Wheaties Academy through all of its iterations, first as a participant and then a more of a mentor through the next iterations of it. I have gotten to be on several different committees with the city. And last year I started a business in Wheat Ridge. And so I would say, back to that question, my favorite thing about Wheat Ridge is how involved you can be. And when you're involved in a community and when you're involved and connected with your neighbors, everything's better. You are able to look out for each other. You're able to have deep connections and really look out for your neighbors and also the next generation and the new folks that are moving here and our next little Wheat Ridge residents that are growing up now. And what I would do to protect that is I would do my best to connect folks who want to be more involved to resources to figure out how to be involved. If you want to be on a board or commission, I can direct you to the right people. And I can also just tell my story and hopefully influence you to be able to be more involved in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel?
Thank you. One of my policy platforms is Keep Wheat Ridge, Wheat Ridge. And I say that because I'm here because I fell in love with the city after I moved here. And that falling in love with it, I would qualify it as quirky. And when I think more about what makes Wheat Ridge quirky, it's really that we're a small town and that we really allow people to be themselves here, whether it's a business or a resident. We have a huge diversity of people and businesses and things to do in the city. And I love that we don't try and be anything other than ourselves. And when I think about the work I've done to this point and the work moving forward to preserve sort of that small town quality that presents a sort of an authentic quirkiness, I think it's really anchored deeply in continuing the good work that we've, I think, done in the last 4 years about reaching people at the neighborhood level and understanding what do you care about in your neighborhood? What are the things that are most important to you? Doing engagement and listening and making sure that people know that they've been heard. So we don't just ask, we let people know what comes of them sharing their opinions with us. We're never gonna have all the same opinion, and there are gonna be some people who don't like ultimately what we decide to do, but I feel really proud of how far we've come with listening. And if we can keep listening, we're gonna be able to preserve that small town feel where we're not losing ourselves to sort of like a dominant big voice, but rather being able to be responsive to more nuanced things that keep Wheat Ridge quirky. I almost every week have a great story I have from just riding my bike or walking around and running into somebody or running into a gigantic snapping turtle on the Clear Creek Trail. And there's just great assets that make Wheat Ridge uniquely Wheat Ridge. And I'm committed to preserving those while still making sure we're investing in being a great place for the future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Corey?
Well, as I said earlier, I grew up here, and as somebody who grew up here but is not a lifelong resident, I chose to come back and I chose to raise my family here because of the people and because Wheat Ridge is Wheat Ridge. There is no other place in the world like Wheat Ridge. Wheat Ridge, I believe, is the only Wheat Ridge, even if you look it up. But we have to protect that, and that's in our neighborhoods. That's making sure that we keep our neighborhoods, and we can thicken up on the corridors, we can take a little bit more density on the corridors, but we need to protect who we are in our neighborhoods. And as co-chair of the Neighborhood Revitalization Strategy 4 years ago, along with Councilor Hulteen, we were able to engage with all of our residents and figure out a little bit what they wanted. But what came of that process was our Let's Talk program, and being able to implement that over the last few years, and having our planners and our staff go out into our neighborhoods and figure out what needs to be done in those neighborhoods to make them better, whether it's traffic management, whether it's engaging or connecting sidewalks and streets to making sure that kids have safe ways to get to and from school. So we as a community need to continue to make sure that we invest in ourselves and make sure that we don't rest on what it was to be here 20 years ago, 30 years ago. We need to make sure that Wheat Ridge is a place that we can continue to live in and be proud of for the next 40, 50 years. So that's why I'm going to continue our processes that we've put in over the last 4 years to make sure that we're engaging with our citizens and make sure that we have a safe community for everybody to grow up in and make sure that our businesses can thrive. So thank you.
Thank you. Dan, your response, please.
Thank you. The question that was posed here is what I love about Wheat Ridge. And the way I would put that is when I look around District 4, and that's kind of the northwest part of the city, I like the things I can get done in District 4. Sustaining the viability of our business, commercial, and industrial base is a top priority for my campaign. We know that District 4 includes the only true industrial businesses in the city, businesses that bring jobs and support our tax base. But what are some of the other businesses you can find in District 4? We know that Dealership Row brings car shoppers from far and wide to kick the tires on the latest models. After that, shoppers can hunt for an amusing antique down the frontage road. Simply put, District 4 is where people from all across northern Colorado come to shop. For example, in District 4, there are several places you can shop for an RV, or you can get that RV fixed. You can buy a car or a truck, or get that car or truck fixed. You can buy a new drum set. You can buy a unique flower arrangement. You can buy a frozen blizzard treat. You can buy top quality meats, including Rocky Mountain oysters. You can buy top quality cannabis. You can sample a tasty New England IPA at a brew pub. You can buy a marble headstone. You can ride your bike along Clear Creek Greenbelt, or park for free and ride a train downtown for work or a Rockies game. You can play pickleball at Prospect Park. You can learn a valuable skill in the building construction trade. You can learn how to drive a big rig truck. You can get a haircut at an old school barbershop. You can get a professional treatment for a sick puppy. You can replace a broken propeller on a boat. You can dine at a renowned steak place. You can get a job at a brand new paper industry warehouse. And of course, enjoy the world's best pizza, pasta, and burgers. This is all things you can do in District 4.
Thank you. Larry?
Thank you very much. What do you like most about Wheat Ridge? That's an interesting question. What's not to like? I have to start out at the top of my list. It would be it produced my wife, Carol. And that's why I'm here. I think overall, one of the things that I like best about Wheat Ridge is that it's home. I've been to a lot of different places. For a while I traveled for business, and always looking at if I had to leave Wheat Ridge, and the operative word there is had to, for work or whatever, would this place be the same? Would this place be as good? And from one coast to the other, I never found a place I would rather live than here at home. I think that is probably the most important thing about preserving here in Wheat Ridge, is the fact that people can come here and find home. Quality of life has been outstanding since 1970. We've talked about the green belt. You have a back surgery, you can't run, jump, or play, but you can go down on the green belt and get your exercise and watch the fish and the stream and the turtles, and even once in a while see a deer in the middle of downtown Denver, which we are very close to, 15 minutes. you can see deer and you go for your walk. It's a great quality of life. I have great neighbors. There are great people here in Wheat Ridge. And I would rather just not be anywhere else. It is just home. Thank you.
Thank you. Clarence?
Yeah, thank you. My head's still spinning thinking about all the things District 4 has that Dan rattled off. We don't have any of that in District 1. I'm a little jealous. I picked out where I live right now in 2016 on a map because of where it's located. I wanted to be on the west side of Denver so I could be near the mountains, and I wanted to be near the city. I didn't know anything more about it, and I scored big time. I was a renter in that home for 5+ years, and I made good friends with the owners, and eventually they sold it to my wife and I. It was a dream come true because my neighborhood opened their arms to me with open arms, and they said, "Welcome to Sweet Ridge." That might be copyrighted, I don't know, but they were right. And where I live is on the periphery of Wheat Ridge. I could hit a wiffle ball into Edgewater. My backyard backs up to the city border. We fall asleep every night to the sound of Denver traffic. And the fluidity that we have between Denver and Wheat Ridge and Edgewater, just in District 1 is amazing. It's incredible, in my neighborhood especially. And I really appreciate that. I appreciate like the homeliness that we have. It's very family friendly. I chose to start raising a family here, and I made the right choice. And to enhance that, I want to bring to council a focus on those peripheries and margins and make improvements. It's a nightmare to cross 26th or Sheridan. It's a complete game of Frogger sometimes. And we are sort of very isolated, even though we shouldn't be. So to improve this city, I think there's low-hanging fruit options that we can look at. Look towards the success of WADS and think forward to bringing those kinds of things to Sheridan. Thank you.
Thank you. And now for our second question. What do you believe is Wheat Ridge's most urgent challenge, and what steps would you take to address it? Rachel, you're up first on this question.
I get the first super challenge question. Yeah, well, actually, it's funny. I didn't know what the question was, but I just wrote down here, complex problems without easy solutions. Because most everything we deal with in the city falls under the category of a complex problem without an easy solution. And if I were to say one that is one of the biggest ones that we're facing and one of the most complex is housing. And I think actually I'm incredibly proud of the work we've done in the last couple of years. We've adopted the Affordable Housing Study and Action Plan. And not only did we adopt it, but we've actually started taking meaningful action to ensure that people such as teachers, firefighters, the people who work at one of our many grocery stores, a lot of the people who work in Wheat Ridge can't afford to live here. And we, also like all communities in the region, have people who are experiencing homelessness. And we are doing meaningful action both in creating the Affordable Housing Fund by taking the tax revenue from short-term rentals and setting that aside for funding exclusively to create affordable housing opportunities here in Wheat Ridge. We're unique, and I think we were ahead of other cities that are now looking at doing similar things. But our work isn't done. We've got several units. I think it's just over 200 units under construction also in District 2 at 44th and Wadsworth. And it's an incredible opportunity for people who are trying to find a home in the region. And I'm excited that they're going to be able to call Wheat Ridge home. It's a location that's close to transit, shopping, employment centers. We have students at Stevens Elementary that are experiencing homelessness. So luckily, we are working with Foothills Regional Housing to ensure that folks in Wheat Ridge get early consideration for those available units. So continuing to work on the housing affordability issue. We have great momentum. We've got work ahead of us, and we've just committed to increasing our affordable housing by 9% over the next 3 years. Looking forward to that.
Thank you. Corey?
I think I would agree with Councilor Hulteen. We have a lot of challenges. We have homelessness, crime, affordable housing, infrastructure issues. So it's a lot of issues that we have, and they all go hand in hand, and it's something that we have to continually address, not one at a time, but all of them as a whole. We can't decide that we're making one decision here and it doesn't affect something somewhere else. So we need to continue to invest in our infrastructure, which is why we've, as a council, come forward with 2J this year, which you'll hear more about later, but that's an investment in our infrastructure. We need to continue to address homelessness. We have a homeless navigator program. We have a housing navigator program. Our police are constantly out working with our homeless, not trying to harass our homeless, but to work with them, get them into our homeless court, have the judge help them, get them into our navigator programs, get them into our housing programs, get them with Jefferson Center for Mental Health. So mental health is a big part of that as well. As we look at crime, one of the things that this council enacted about a year ago was our hotel ordinance, and to help clean up the I-70 and Kipling corridor. And the chief was here presenting a couple months ago, and we've had a 19% drop in calls for service to those hotels. We have 2 of them already working to redevelop into housing, long-term housing, rather than short-term inaffordable housing for people where they're really predatory and taking advantage of them. So as we work at our affordable housing strategy, we are leaders. I was watching some of our neighbors and their candidate forums. They're starting processes that we're finishing, and we're actually putting into implementation programs like our Affordable Housing Fund, to where we can go to existing housing, and instead of building new housing everywhere, we can actually go to existing landlords and help them refurbish their stock and reinvest in our community. So those are just a few of our challenges and some ways that I would address it. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan?
Thank you. There are a lot of urgent challenges, and we've heard some of them. As I look at, I think one of the urgent challenges the city faces now is housing. The housing market in Wheat Ridge remains strong. It is one of the close-in suburbs of Denver. As a result, people who want to live in or near Denver, whether it's for work or for the amenities that Denver offers, these people also want to live in Wheat Ridge. Over the past several years, we have seen new homes and multifamily developments built across the city. Often when a new home is proposed for an existing neighborhood, it is seen as having an effect on the homes around it. The families who live there, many for decades, these people are rightfully concerned about how that new house or townhome will affect their home on their block. To protect the character of our neighborhoods, the city revises standards for building height, setbacks, and appearance to prevent overshadows and slot homes that are simply out of place. City zoning policies remain protective of our stable neighborhoods, most of which are made up of single-family and duplex homes. As a member of City Council, I will protect that stability. As an important city in a growing urban area, Wheat Ridge continues to see strong demand for homes and apartments. To meet that demand for housing, some home builders promote new multifamily developments for their favorable economics. It is the city's role to strike a balance between the developer's economic reality and concerns about density in our neighborhoods. During my 5 years representing District 4 on Planning Commission, we have seen several new apartment and townhome developments built in what I call the new Northwest Side. From the terraced townhomes at 44th and Tabor, to the new single-family homes and townhomes at 54th and Quail, to the new townhomes and ultra-modern parallel apartment building across from Ward Road Station. Wheat Ridge demonstrates that it can increase housing and meet the realities of today's real estate market. And that's not to mention the new multifamily housing at Clear Creek Crossing adjacent to Lutheran Hospital. I won't mention it because it's not in District 4. I support the role the city plays in responsible development. As a member of the Planning Commission, I have voted against townhome developments that did not fit their surroundings. Planning Commission rejected proposed projects that tried to squeeze too many homes in too small a place.
Thank you very much. Larry?
Thank you. I think we're all in agreement that there are many issues here, and a lot of them are common to all communities across the nation. I see our most urgent challenge as how to deal with encroaching urbanism. I have talked to people, and when I was on council before, people would move over to Wheat Ridge from places that were being urbanized, and they'd come here and were concerned that it would happen to them again. The trick is to try and find the correct balance. How can we preserve our identity and not lose ourselves to urbanism while meeting the needs of the community. When I was on council, I agreed that there were places like out on the other side of I-70 at Clear Creek Crossing where we could support denser housing because they could build the infrastructure to take care of it. But that, I think, is the one thing that we have to maintain is a balanced growth and not let our neighborhoods become a mishmash of cute, quaint homes and then high-rise buildings sandwiched in between. Another issue that's going to be a paramount here soon, and it gets to be more every year, is the fact that we have a high percentage of rental. We have an urban rental population and not a rural population. And we're going to have to try to meet those needs without disturbing our down home, raise a family here, stay and die in Wheat Ridge for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Clarence, your statement, please.
Thank you. The rest of the panelists here have made some really good points and really touched on some of the most urgent problems here in Wheat Ridge. In my opinion, the most urgent crisis looming here in Wheat Ridge in the Front Range is water availability. This is a problem that is going to require regional solutions. If not for the tremendous runoff that we had this year, we would be having starting to have really hard decisions in Denver, and part of Wheat Ridge receives a large proportion of Wheat Ridge, if not all of it, gets water from the Colorado River through intermountain diversions. And when that river starts to dry up and there are interstate conflicts between about water rights, we're going to be in a world of hurt. I have a sort of a running joke with some friends that it's going to take drought to tank the heated housing economy here, because when you're only allowed to flush your toilet a few times a week, people might start looking for a new place to live, and that is a real reality that other countries in similar drought conditions are experiencing, and something that we ought to be forward thinking about. Another crisis with that environmental bend is looking north to Westminster and north of that up to Boulder. There is a pest called the emerald ash borer. It's decimating ash trees. Somewhere up to a quarter of our urban canopy here in Wheat Ridge is made up of ash trees, and there is no good way to battle this thing, and we're going to lose character of our neighborhoods, and the big, tall, old ash trees that make our neighborhoods what they are at real risk, and we can look to places like Denver that support treating trees to prevent the disease, and maintain canopies and maintain character of neighborhoods and green spaces. So something out of the box that obviously is not as important as some of the other folks have said, but something on my mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny, your turn.
Thank you. I'm a big fan of vinyl records, and not to sound like a broken record, but I also feel that affordable and attainable housing for all is one of our biggest challenges, and for this instance, I would say it's our biggest challenge right now, and I think it is something that a lot of communities are facing. There's tons of evidence around that, but I do feel like we have the ability to really come together and create some more solutions. The city's already done some really wonderful work in this area, but it's certainly not done. This work is long. It's going to take a long time to really get to the point of having enough housing, having the inventory, having the plans. But we really need to continue the work that's being done. And so I would, just to reiterate, affordable housing for all, and utilizing all of our connections, community partners, to really come up with good solutions for this. Smart growth is a really big thing for us. I think that there's lots of folks moving to Colorado. There's lots of folks moving directly to Wheat Ridge, and we want to make sure that we are continuing to be ready for that, and we can welcome them with options for homes. So I think that those folks look look different in that, we have families moving, we have young families, we have professionals moving, and we also have folks whose kiddos have gone to college and they're looking to downsize. And I think that that's another area that we really need to consider, our senior population and housing for that population, and how we can continue to take care of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Here's our third question. In the May 2023 Community Survey Report, only 27% of residents felt that housing and rental rates in Wheat Ridge are affordable. What would you do to promote affordable housing in Wheat Ridge? Corey, we will start with you.
Well, we're doing it. I think we've kind of touched on it a few times, but as I said earlier, Wheat Ridge is one of the first cities in the Front Range, certainly, to adopt an affordable housing plan and to actually start to implement it. We have this thing that we do here is we don't just adopt a plan, we actually implement it. We did that with the NRS, and we've done that several times with some of the other plans as well. We don't let plans sit on the shelf and collect dust. We actually get out and start implementing it. So that's something I've been really impressed in. It's not just the council, but it's our staff. They're out there every day working to implement this affordable housing plan that we have. We're working, I believe we already have almost $400,000 in our affordable housing fund that's been collected from our short-term rentals that we passed a few years ago, which, by the way, short-term rentals, we also passed recently ADUs, which are accessory dwelling units, so people can build mother-in-law suites essentially in their backyard and rent those out, or rent those out as another version of affordable housing. So we have a lot of things that we're doing. We've got a lot of irons in the fire. We have just Monday night, we rezoned a small piece of property at 44th and Wadsworth to go into the Foothills Regional Development for the Ives project, which is all affordable housing. Also recently, they just built another project at right behind Safeway on Vance Street. So we are doing quite a bit. The other day, we adopted the Proposition 123, which is a 3% increase in our affordable housing stock over the next 3 years, so 3% each year. So we have the numbers that we're looking at, and we're going to continue to work on those as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Dan, your turn.
Thank you. Wheat Ridge, like most cities in the Denver metro area, is faced with not just a housing shortage, but a shortage of housing that is considered affordable. There are, if you look at, you can find the standards for what are considered affordable housing in terms of family income, and how much of their income would go to support their living. This is something that I know is confronting every city here in the metro. And one of the things that the city is doing is, or several of the things that the city is doing, is working with Foothills Housing Authority and working with private developers to build new housing. For example, the Ives housing project at 44th and Wadsworth, and then the one next to the Safeway, are both dedicated toward maintaining an affordable housing level. The other projects, for example, the Howard Johnson's out across from the truck stop on 44th, is right now under construction, being converted into workforce housing. So the city is taking steps, working with public entities like Foothills Housing and with private developers. We are seeing just recently the Best Interstate Hotel at the Frontage Road and Kipling is being converted now into housing. So again, the city's taking steps, but it is one of those continuous battles that will always be there, and the city will be under pressure all the time to provide some solutions.
Thank you. Larry?
Thank you. I agree with everything everybody's saying, but I think we have to get outside the box a little bit and get outside the 9 dots. This is a problem which is nationwide. It's not just our city-wide, it's not Denver-wide, it's nationwide. And we are 9 square miles in the middle of a huge nation where affordable housing is an issue. in what we can do, and I think what we need to be doing is also trying to address the issue in conjunction with other communities and lobby our state and federal legislatures and departments to help us deal with this problem. If it's just a lot more complicated than trying to build 100 units here and 100 units there. If 100 units today are affordable until inflation hits you, and now all of a sudden they're not anymore. So we need to be looking for total solutions, and it's more than just brick and stick. I think we need to address that on a bigger plane and see what we can do to change the whole trend across the whole state. We're doing everything we can for now, but if inflation carries on the way it is, our efforts will not be successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Clarence?
I think Larry's got some really good ideas here and makes some good points that it is more than a Wheat Ridge problem and more than a regional problem. And though I very much applaud the Wheat Ridge affordable housing plan and am happy to hear steps towards that being implemented, it should be in lockstep with more regional, state, and larger directed efforts towards addressing affordable housing. It's extremely difficult from my perspective. With that happy story I shared about an older couple that liked me and gave me a good deal on the house. Like if that didn't happen, if they didn't offer me a house to rent for very cheap, I wouldn't be here. It's a very expensive place to live. And without things like deed restrictions, we could very well find ourselves in another inflated market, even with the good steps we're taking towards addressing this issue. And so, there's opportunities in Wheat Ridge to continue to address this. I look towards the Lutheran property with a massive rezoning effort like that, and an opportunity to be forward thinking about mixed zone housing where we can be strategic about high density housing and creating affordable housing. I think there's opportunity there. And we can be strategic as a city about finding other places where that can be had as well. So something that the city ought to be thinking about in lockstep with our other metro municipalities and at the state and federal level as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny, your response?
Thank you. I also agree. Affordable housing is something that we all are talking about. It's on the top of a lot of our brains and our projects and thinking. And I really do feel like the things that are currently in play that the city has done are really impressive, and I'm very, very proud of what has been done so far. And I think that the momentum that has created and the thinking that has really gone into those things, I think that momentum just needs to continue. I think that thinking about innovative ways to create more opportunity for attainable housing, those are perfect examples. The ADU, the mention that Councilor Stites brought up about passing the ADU, us being able to have ADUs and mother-in-law suites are certainly that's a benefit for a lot of folks who have family members who need a small house, and you're able to now have them close and you're able to care for them and have them there. But also just really thinking about repurposing other buildings. We've got great examples already that have been mentioned, the Howard Johnson, and Clarence just brought up the Lutheran project, which is going to be a really, really big point of discussion, lots of work and lots of brain power going into that. But I do think we have a huge opportunity there as well with being able to create some really good opportunities for affordable housing. In closing, I'll say it just we need to continue the conversation. The more we talk about it, the more ideas that will come up to the top, and the more we will be successful in really taking hold of this and getting it taken care of.
Thank you. Rachel, your response?
Thank you. So a couple of things. When Corey mentioned a little bit ago that we did the neighborhood revitalization strategy a few years ago. And one of the findings from our research, I say the consultants' research, was that Wheat Ridge actually has a lot of diversification of housing, and it's actually scattered pretty well throughout the city. We don't have like specifically this neighborhood is like really just where we see a lot of like lower end rentals, and this is a really much nicer neighborhood. They're actually like a lot of adjacent interspersed. And I think that's really great. And I bring that up because one of the strategies in our Affordable Housing Action Plan is about reinvesting in existing housing stock. And I think one of the strategies that we need to really pay attention to, and we've prioritized, but to me feels like a priority for implementation, is keeping people in their homes. How do we help make sure that people who are currently living in some of our affordable housing, that the quality of home is nicer? And we partnered with Foothills Regional Housing for a great refresh of the Cesar Chavez units over off of Garrison. And I'm really excited for us as a city to figure out how do we help keep people in their home, especially seniors who may need reinvestment in their home to be able to age in place. And so I think that's a priority because moving's expensive. So staying in Wheat Ridge is important. A thing that's important to me is densifying our corridors. So we have some really vibrant corridors, and we've seen some great mixed-use projects come in. And I'd like to see more opportunities because that helps bring, income into our community and younger people who start as renters and a lot of times end up living here and becoming homeowners. And then the last thing I really like to think about is the flexibility of our affordable housing fund to actually help build wealth for people. We really recognize that a lot of home ownership opportunities are just not available to younger people. And so how can we use the funding we have to actually not just get people in homes, but help them build wealth through home ownership? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now to our fourth question. The 2023 survey also revealed that all aspects of transportation declined from 2021 to 2023, and fewer than 40% of the respondents rated traffic flow, streets, and sidewalks as good or excellent. How would you address this concern? Dan, you may start first.
And if I understand the question, it's how we would address traffic issues now, or?
The 2023 survey revealed that all aspects of transportation declined from 2021 to 2023. How would you address these concerns?
If I understand the question correctly, the concern about traffic issues has declined.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I don't think those people were surveyed and they asked about Wadsworth. I have to think that if anybody is thinking about traffic issues in Wheat Ridge, automobile traffic, vehicular traffic, yes, Wadsworth is at the top of the list. One of the things that I hear a lot is what's going on with Wadsworth. And I often ask, I'll ask them, okay, what do you think is going on? And they'll say, well, it's congested. It delays my moving from one part of the city to the other. It's widely recognized as a headache for anybody who driving on it or trying to even get across Wadsworth. Most of us by now have alternate routes that avoid Wadsworth as much as possible. Although construction work continues day, night, and weekends, there's still a lot of work to be done. The city has done an adequate job of keeping us updated on progress made, but one question I get asked again and again is when will it be finished? I've asked that whenever the city sends out a Wadsworth update that it include a progress meter, be one of those thermometer things you see on a fundraising page. That way we can see how far the project has come and how much there is to go. For now, we can plan for two more winters of construction on Wadsworth. When I checked the Improve Wadsworth page on What's Up Wheat Ridge earlier today, it shows an anticipated completion date of spring 2026. In the meantime, please keep in mind all those businesses that may be struggling along the construction route. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry?
Thank you. If I understand the question, people are concerned about the increasing congestion in our city. Years ago, when I was on council, I told everybody that we had to have a balance in our zoning and how we handle our transportation. If you build all these high-rise buildings, you are increasing your population by the cube. Your infrastructure has no way it can keep up. If you want a good macro example of that, take a look at what happened out there on I-70 between I-25 and 225. The paint is not dry out there yet, and it's stop-and-go traffic. As a counselor, I supported having higher density out at Clear Creek Crossing because we could design the infrastructure, and that's not just roads, but sewers, water, gas supply, everything. We could design those communities in order to be able to handle the additional flow of people. And we have to be careful that we don't try and get carried away with too much what they call infill here in the city, so that we overload existing utilities and infrastructure that cannot handle a mass influx of extra new people. There has to be balance and common sense in our development. That is the only way we can get a handle on keeping our streets so that we can actually get from point A to point B without being stop and go. Thank you.
Thank you. Clarence?
I'll focus on the sidewalk part of that survey response because Wheat Ridge is an odd place in District 1 at least, where sidewalks are sometimes non-existent, which is problematic, but you know, depending on the character of the neighborhood and the traffic flow, maybe not that big of a problem. Or the sidewalks can be those funky little narrow concrete sidewalks with no grass margin between them and the street, which is what I have dealt with my entire residency here. And it's a frequent complaint from my neighbors and friends in District 1. Some of them aren't even wide enough to push a stroller down, and frequently they're infringed by things like overgrown bushes, and it just becomes entirely unwalkable when there's car, sidewalk, bush, and you know, there's a minor code violation that maybe is somebody who doesn't even realize they haven't trimmed their bushes in a while, and all of a sudden it is entirely unwalkable for swaths of your neighborhood, and that's difficult. So I understand where folks are coming from in the survey response that is the topic of question here. They are not excellent, and I know the city has some sort of rotating focus areas for sidewalk improvements and a budget for that, and you know, we could revisit the amount of resources that we direct towards various alternative modes of transportation, you know, to make this city walkable and bikeable, while you know, still doing improvements like the Wadsworth improvement with you know, out of the box ideas like continuous flow intersections. So I think there's a lot of work to do to ensure that Wheat Ridge is walkable and bikeable, and people are happy with the status of our infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny?
Sure, thank you. With this discussion, I'm going to have to also throw in that safety is another one of my big concerns, and especially when it comes to walkability, bikeability, rollability. So, you know, all of our residents don't always have the ability to have a vehicle, meaning a car. So we have folks who ride their bikes. We have folks who are in wheelchairs. We have folks who ride the bus. And we need to make sure that all of our residents need to get where they're going and get there safely. And so I will just continue to that conversation about what Clarence just mentioned with sidewalks, big opportunity there. Bikeability, we've done some great work in Wheat Ridge with continuing some bike lanes, both north and south, and going east to west as well, because we have plenty of folks who ride into Denver for work. But I would also say that we have a great opportunity with some more investment in infrastructure. And I think that conversation about complete streets and keeping vehicles other than cars part of that conversation. We have a great opportunity in Colorado with e-bikes, and lots of folks are getting e-bikes, and really those are becoming more popular. They're great for transportation, and there's great benefits and as far as like purchasing getting rebates on a purchase of an e-bike. So I think that when we talk about this this discussion, this topic, we have to consider all modes of transportation. And so that's something I would like to continue and get solutions for.
Thank you. Rachel?
Thank you. This is my favorite topic. So I just, Wadsworth project to this point is entirely in District 2. I think it's creeping over to District 1 and 3 shortly. But, it's important to keep in mind that project took 10 years of planning and prioritization and chasing funding. It's a $50 million project. And it is going to be 3.5 years of construction. I'm excited because it's going to result in really good side paths where previously you couldn't walk or ride your bike down the corridor to get from one end to the other or connect with the Clear Creek. We'll have that access when we're done. But when we look citywide, if we think about what it would take to actually expand our roads to actually accommodate what is not Wheat Ridge's growth, but regional and statewide growth, we can't build our way out of it. And so I'm really excited that this fall on the ballot, when you see my name and my colleagues' names, you're also going to see the opportunity to vote for 2J, which would be a $75 million investment in complete streets. And these are projects that are in response to what our community has said is important to them at the corridor down the street from where they live, the corridors that their families depend on to walk to school, to walk to parks. If we can ensure that in our community, if you want to get to a local business, to school, to the rec center, to come to city council and listen to us on a Monday night, that if you can get there safely by walking or riding a bike, then you're one less car on the road. And if we can, in this city, do that, what we're doing is substituting 60% of the average trips are less than 3 miles. And if you can travel around the city to visit all the great businesses and go to Five Ridges Farm and do all the things that make us wonderful and quirky and not have to get in your car, we're actually preventing the need from having to do one $50 million road expansion after another. And instead, we're really investing in a community that feels connected, safe, and vibrant. And so I'm super excited about 2J and the opportunity for us to invest those kind of funds on our principal corridors. It's not just me. We've heard from 70% of our community that they support the idea too.
Thank you. Corey?
Thank you, and it's always tough to follow Rachel on a question like that. That's her passion, but I'm in lockstep. 2J is pretty much the answer to this question. And it's kind of nice, 4 years ago when I ran and when Rachel ran, we weren't looking for solutions. We already had a solution. It was the neighborhood revitalization strategy. It was implementing it. We already have a solution here. It's 2J. It's investing in our corridors. It's investing in our sidewalks. It's investing in our bike paths. It's making sure that we have infrastructure for the next 20 to 50 years that we can fill around. So it's making sure that we don't have to come and do a 10-year planning for a $80 million Wadsworth project. It's getting in there and making sure that we're investing right now and making sure that we have sidewalks down 38th from Kipling down to Kipling down to Youngfield, making sure that we have bike lanes that kids can travel to and from their neighborhoods to Prospect Valley, or to and from their neighborhoods to Stevens, or to and from their neighborhoods to Peak Elementary. So let's make sure that students can get to where they need to go. Let's make sure that the adults can get in their cars and drive, but let's make sure that the people who want to walk and who want to bike and take those cars off the roads, let's make sure that they have that option as well. So we also had, as we're talking about transportation being lowered, RTD had canceled a few of the routes, specifically one that went to Wheat Ridge High School. Recently, with the Clear Creek development, we put in RTD turnaround that used to be at used to be at Youngfield and the Walmart there. We put it over at Clear Creek Crossing. So now RTD is talking about putting some of those routes back in. So we're already making those steps. So we just need to keep doing what we're doing, and we are just going to continue to be a great place to live. Thank you.
Thank you. And now to our fifth and final question, which you may have heard some answers to already. In November, voters will be asked to approve or deny extending the existing 0.5% sales tax to fund sidewalks, bike lanes, and street improvements, among other things. Can you tell us if you support extending or denying the sales tax and why? Larry, you're up first. All right, I'll repeat the whole thing. In November, voters will be asked to approve or deny extending the existing 0.5% sales tax to fund sidewalk, bike lanes, and street improvements, among other things. Can you tell us if you support extending or denying the sales tax and why?
I would have to say that I do support, investment in our infrastructure. There are places in our city here, and like one of those is 38th Avenue from Kipling to Youngfield, that it's very difficult for people to move around throughout our city. As long as we keep a balance of how we spend the money and where, and we have complete transparency with the people of the projects that we're going to build and how much we're going to spend and when, then I support an investment in our infrastructure.
Thank you. And my script had a slight mistake in it. It is a half cent, not 0.5%, so please excuse me. Clarence, your response, please.
I support extending that sales tax 100%. We are in desperate need of this investment. This is a no-brainer. I think the panel has expressed very good reason for using this investment to increase the alternate transportation methods that the city has. Anybody who's ever driven up Sheridan has probably seen like the Lime bikes just completely stacked up near Sloan's Lake or on the Denver side, and they don't dare cross over to Wheat Ridge, and it's almost that almost is like a statement, right, about the southeast corner and the eastern edge of Wheat Ridge. I mean, you see at the corner of 38th and Sheridan a memorial to somebody who was hit and killed on a bicycle by a car, and it's an absolute tragedy that we don't that to this day we haven't made the investments to improve these alternate modes of transportation. And so 100% in favor. I think it's going to do really good things for our city. People like me who bought an e-bike, I never thought I would ride a bike so much and park my car for days or a week at a time and forget how much gas is even in it because I haven't touched it in so long. We would really benefit, from the increased ability to bike around and do it safely. I have to pick and choose my routes because I've got a toddler on the back and I don't. There's like off-limit streets and that's a shame, and I think that this investment is going to do big things to increase the amount of miles that's available to me as a bicyclist and as a pedestrian or a rollerblader or a scooter. There's so many different ways to get around now with technology, and all we need to do is literally lay the path to get them on the road and take cars off. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny?
Thank you. I am absolutely in support of this. And I do agree, this is a huge opportunity for us, and things can only get better when we have that ability to invest that money into our infrastructure for complete streets and making things a little bit safer for walking, biking, rolling. It's a wonderful opportunity, and I think that we can do nothing but good things with it. I agree with what Clarence mentioned earlier about there are just some streets that are just off limits when you're riding a bike. And I just so happen to own a business that is a bicycle-based business. And when I am riding east to get into Denver for an event, there's a little bit of a sigh of relief when I cross Sheridan and get onto one of the bicycle boulevards. And I think that we have a wonderful opportunity, and we can do good things with that revenue and using it for the infrastructure and not just for folks on bikes, but kiddos and folks who are walking to school, who are walking to work, who are just really just living their lives. And we need to have the ability to have safety as a primary concern for all. There's tons of data on pedestrian and bicycle crashes, and those are easily accessible. We have a great organization in Wheat Ridge, the Active Transportation Advisory Team, who does some great work with getting those stats and making sure that folks understand, you know, how to be safe and moving those things forward. So yes, absolutely in support of it, and I am so excited about the possibilities.
Thank you. Rachel?
Well, I'm sure nobody's going to be surprised to hear that I enthusiastically support 2J. But I think it's important to recognize it doesn't matter if I support it. What we heard was that 70% of our community supported it. It was such high support from our community that our pollster was a little bit like flabbergasted with how strong the support was. And so I think it's just really important as an elected official. I mean, of course, this is my kind of ballot initiative. I got involved in the city advocating for sidewalks 10 years ago. And so unsurprisingly, I'm incredibly excited that we're at this point where we have 70% support to see the type of investments to make our corridors safe places. As Jenny just mentioned, you know, 2022 was the deadliest year on record in Colorado for people outside of a vehicle. 110 pedestrians were killed by motorists and 15 cyclists. And I am somebody who depends on my bike as my primary form of transportation. And so I am that person who's doing those 3 to 5 mile trips around the city. And it's tough. There are some good places, but crossing streets is really hard. And when we lack the bike lanes, I end up riding on the sidewalk sometimes, which isn't safe for the kiddos, but it's safer than me being in the street often. So our community really wants this. As Clarence mentioned, e-bikes are on the rise. I ride one, sounds like Clarence rides one. You know, the state is actually, starting next year, every Colorado resident can get a $450 point of sale rebate on an e-bike. And they're doing that because e-bikes meaningfully displace people who would otherwise be in a car. So we're going to be seeing more and more e-bikes on the streets of Wheat Ridge, Colorado generally, but definitely in Wheat Ridge. In part because on an e-bike, that 3 to 5 mile trip is easily a 7 to 10 mile trip. So we really need to move forward with deferred investments to make sure our principal corridors, 44th, 32nd, 38th, are safe places, and then our big arterials that we fill in those sidewalk gaps to make sure that those are safe places for people to walk and ride a bike.
Thank you. Corey?
I am 100% for 2J. I think I've said that a few times tonight. I think that this is a fantastic investment for our city. And again, as we were looking at the polling numbers before council back in February and into June, our community supports this. This is something that they want. This is something that we took from our neighborhood engagement series, and we took all these projects and we look at the investment, and this is what our community wants. So this is something that comes from a lot of work from our staff and from our council to make sure that these are the types of projects that our residents want. But you know, we're talking about extending the half-cent sales tax, and I want to talk a little bit about 2E, which we passed back in 2016, and the fact that we've collected all the sales tax 4 years early, I believe, for those projects, and that's the Clear Creek Crossing, that's the TOD, that's Wadsworth, and that's improvements to Anderson Park. So while all that work isn't all done yet, we've already almost collected all of that money, and so it's all been used responsibly. So now that we're looking to ask the citizens to continue that half-cent sales tax, yes, it's going to be used responsibly. It's going to be used for projects that are going to help people, not just now, but into the future. This is going to help our children. This is going to help our elderly. This is going to help every single person in the city. So this is an investment that's worth it. So please vote yes on 2J.
Thank you. Dan?
Thank you. Our city ballots go out for mailing in less than 3 weeks. This year's ballot initiative includes an initiative 2J. That initiative asks voters if they support or oppose extending a half-cent sales tax to fund additional capital improvements, such as street and sidewalk improvements. In a survey earlier this year, 68% said they support extending the tax on its face. When asked if they would support the tax extension if it went into capital improvements and also improvements to drainage and floodplain infrastructure, that support grows to 78%. Drainage and floodplain infrastructure is very important in District 4. I've talked to, as I'm canvassing my neighborhood, I've talked to several people that live in a floodplain, and even though it's considered a 100-year event, they still will have to buy flood insurance. They will have to, they are restricted if they want to add an additional room on the house. This has a major impact on their quality of life. And if the city is able to first take a few steps to not just sort of define where the floodplain is, but to do something about it, to actually begin some projects that manage that and also improve some of the storm drainage infrastructure that we've had a problem with, frankly, in District 4, then for that reason, I support the extension of the half-cent sales tax. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for your responses tonight. Now it's time for your closing statements. Each of you will have 2 minutes, and we will begin with Clarence.
Well, thanks for the opportunity tonight. This was really great. My campaign focuses about fostering communication between my neighbors and City Council. I'll look to balance the needs for affordable housing while protecting neighborhood character and property values. Next, my neighbors are closer to Edgewater and Denver businesses than Wheat Ridge businesses, and I want to work cross-jurisdiction to find solutions that meld our communities and make traveling between them more fluid. And we've discussed a lot of ideas to make that happen tonight already. If elected, my constituents would be able to count on me for open and responsive communication and accountability through regular meetings and dialogue. They can email me with a concern and they'll get an empathetic ear each and every time. Finally, I've been a renter in Wheat Ridge for most of my residency here and only a homeowner for the last couple, and I can empathize with those of us who aren't homeowners and ensure that equal representation is given to those who are here temporarily, those who are tied up in rental long-term because they're just priced out, or those who are on the road to property ownership and might just need a little bit of help to become homeowners here, just like many of us. Folks can count on me to be a voice that asks questions and fully understands the work at hand. I'll promise to find sensible solutions and do my due diligence at every corner. I want my daughter Max to grow up in this city, to be a proud graduate of our local schools, and I'd love for her to consider calling this place home just as we all choose to do. And with that, I just want to say thanks, and to learn more about me and my platform, go to clarencefuller.com, and from there you can find my contact information and give me a call or shoot me an email. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny?
Thank you. And a quick thank you again to the League of Women Voters for putting this on. I know it's not an easy task. You all are doing a fantastic job. I commend you on that, and I am happy to be a part of it. I am, again, excited and feel just so honored to be running for City Council in District 1 in Wheat Ridge. I love our community, and I am very hopeful to be able to earn your vote this November 7th. One of the things that I'm really excited about is connecting neighbors to each other and to myself. I feel I'm very fortunate to know a lot of folks in Wheat Ridge, but I want to know more, and I want those folks to know other folks in Wheat Ridge. And so I'm gonna kind of lean on my strengths. I'm a bit of a connector, and I'm just going to do my best to connect folks to each other, because like I said earlier, when you know each other, you know your neighbors, you look out for each other, and there's a lot more investment in the community. I want to make sure that our community is safe for everyone. I want to make sure that we all are invested in our community to the extent that we can be and want to be. And one of the first things that I'm hoping to do is have our District 1 meeting and be a part of, get to know each other and be a part of working together and finding solutions on things. Thank you. My goals really for being on council are to be a good listening ear, of course, be available for my neighbors and my constituents in District 1, and work hard for you and take everything that you say into consideration, and also work with my co-counselors and continue the great work that they're already doing. I think there's a lot of great work there. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Rachel?
Thank you, everyone. This has been a great discussion tonight. So, I'm running unopposed, so I feel like I get to maybe take a little bit of liberty with my closing statement. But, I have 3 principles that I operate by. The first is today moving forward. it's important to not dwell too much on the past and be really looking to what's next. The second is small is not unimportant, and I think that's especially true here in Wheat Ridge. And then my third principle is throw the better party. And I am sharing those because I really feel like the next 4 years in Wheat Ridge are going to be good uses of all three of those principles. I'm particularly excited about the upcoming comprehensive plan update. This is the thing that gets me excited, is for us to write the next chapter of our city. And because of the work we've done the last 4 years, we have just extraordinary engagement from our community who want to engage in civic dialogue, and they want to be the authors of the next chapter of our city because they want to envision themselves as characters in that book. And I'm really excited for that. The Lutheran project, the completion of Wadsworth, and the beginning of the newly funded 2J projects, many of which I actually personally have worked on for years and years. You know, we really can't predict the next 4 years, but we can imagine it, and we can work together to make it the best version of Wheat Ridge, and that is why I'm really excited for the next 4 years. I think we've done a great job setting ourselves up for it. When we got the first notification that they were accepting applications for All America City, I called the city manager. I was like, oh, we should do this. I had no idea how much work it was going to be. I was like, oh yeah, we're totally an All America City. And he got the deer in headlights because it's a lot of work. But it was really clear to us that we were an All America City, and our application came together so beautifully. And at one point during the process, our city manager, Patrick Goff, just said, you know what? In Wheat Ridge, we can do anything, and I am really excited to be part of it, and I look forward to working with District 2 and the rest of the city to make the next 4 years fantastic.
Thank you, Rachel. Corey?
Again, I want to thank the League of Women's Voters and everybody who's here tonight, and all of my fellow candidates. This is a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. And, you know, as somebody who's also running unopposed, you know, I want to say thank you again to the citizens of District 3, one for electing me 4 years ago, and one for making me the sole choice this year. But I'm grateful for having this opportunity. As I mentioned earlier, growing up in this city and watching my grandfather and my dad do their work and have the opportunity to come to council, one of the things I absolutely loved and noticed about the city is how informed the citizens were at all times. You could watch Channel 8, you can watch YouTube, and the citizens could come for public comment, and they always had something to say, and they always brought a great point of view that made the councilors think and understand. And I hope to continue that with our citizens now. We have wheatridgespeaks.org that we've implemented over the last few years, which is a great way for people to figure out what's going on in the city and give us feedback in real time. We also have whatsupwheatridge.com, which is a great place for people to go and see the projects that are going on, like Lutheran, like Wadsworth. You can kind of check out and see what's going on, where those projects are at. As we look forward, we want to make sure that we are voting yes on 2J, hopefully, because I want to be on the council that helps implement all those projects. I'm an implementer. I'm somebody in my business where I'm an entrepreneurial person. We don't spend a lot of time talking about it. We find a good idea and we figure out if it's going to be the right one, and then we implement. And that's how our council works. We find the right ideas, we figure out what's going to work, and then we implement those ideas and make sure that we're doing the best for our citizens. And that's what we want to do with 2J. We want to do that with a comprehensive plan. As Lutheran comes up in 2024, 2025, we want to make sure that we have a lot of public feedback on that. So please, citizens, I just ask as you're electing this new council, don't elect us and then ignore us for the next couple of years. Come in, figure out what's going on. Use our resources to make sure that you know what's going on and you're a well-informed citizen so that you can help make those decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan?
Thank you. Since my wife Deborah and I relocated to Wheat Ridge from Denver 7 years ago, I listened to and worked closely with my neighbors. As a member of my HOA at my condominium community, I've also represented Wheat Ridge District 4 on the City Planning Commission for the past 5 years. As a member of my community HOA board, we persevered for 2 long years when an insurance company refused to fully cover damages from a destructive hailstorm in 2017. That perseverance paid off when the insurance company finally agreed to cover the damage and fully repair all 16 buildings. This revitalized the appeal of our homes and restored their value. You can read further about my bio and some of the things I've done in the past by going to Dan for District 4. That's Dan, the number 4, districtiv.com. Wheat Ridge is a remarkable city and a great place to live. That's why I'm running for city council. My campaign is focused on listening to my neighbors and learning about the issues they face every day. As a member of the Wheat Ridge City Council, I will work to protect our neighborhoods, foster a business climate beneficial to all, promote a responsible city government, and balance the pressing need for housing as part of a growing metro area with the very real impact development can have on a neighborhood. I'm Dan Larson, and I'm asking for your vote in the City Council election.
Thank you. Larry?
Thank you. It's kind of deja vu sitting here again, and I'd like to thank you for that opportunity. It's been a long time. One of the most difficult tasks for local political leadership is keeping in touch with the needs and wishes of their constituents. National leaders have the luxury of hundreds of polls on hundreds of issues at their fingertips. Local leaders need to put personal effort into reaching out to the citizens in their districts. I have always made it an absolute policy to be available to District 4 residents. It is essential that they know I can be contacted for help with any issue. I do not turn off my phone when I'm out of town. You must be proactive. At times I've walked through a neighborhood where a problem has occurred and talked to all the affected people. It is the only way to truly understand their issues. When I am elected, I will reinstate a work Facebook account to facilitate interaction and accessibility with my constituents. I attend all city functions, including those outside of District 4, regarding issues affecting our people. District 4 is not an island, and I cannot effectively support District 4 without knowing and having close knowledge of what is going on in the rest of the city. That enables me to discuss the issues with them in real time and give me their feedback. I hold periodic town halls to be able to share ideas, concerns, and solutions with the residents of the district. When the people in the northern portion of my district had problems with noise from the glass plant, they contacted me for assistance. I worked with them, the city administrators, and the management at Coors to find a solution and alleviated their problem. The key to serving the people is to be willing to inject your energy into the administrative process. Being a representative of the people means you must do more than just show up for a meeting on council night. It's a full-time job. Thank you.
Thank you. We would now like to open up to having questions from the audience. And the way we do this in the league is we have volunteers who will come around with cards, and you will write your question on the card, and then they will collect the card, and I will ask the question on your behalf. Okay, we're great. Thank you all for participating tonight. Our candidates for City Council, Clarence Fullard and Jenny Snell for District 1, Rachel Holton for District 2, Corey Stites for District 3, Dan Larson and Larry Matthews for District 4. Thank you for your participation tonight. Our council candidates will be leaving the dais now, and the candidate for city treasurer will join us. We're going to do a little reorganizing, so give us a minute, please. Take a stretch break. clerk positions are open. There is only one candidate for each position. Unfortunately, Steve Kilpatrick was unable to join us tonight. He is the candidate for the city clerk, but we have with us Chris Miller, and so we will be having a discussion with him tonight. Chris, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We'd like to give you the opportunity to have an opening statement that will last about 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Chris Miller. I am currently the city treasurer. I've lived in Wheat Ridge for almost 18 years now, and I just absolutely love Wheat Ridge. From the great small town feel to the cool local businesses, restaurants, breweries that we have here, it's just a great place to live. A little bit about my background. I'm kind of a government geek. I've worked for the city and county of Denver for the last close to 18 years as well, in various finance and accounting roles. I went to school for accounting and finance, started at the state, moved over to the city of Denver. Oddly enough, I started at the city treasury. My first job there was reconciling all the city bank accounts. Really learned the kind of ins and outs, the cash flow of how a local government works in cities. From there, I've gone to various higher level positions at the city and county of Denver. I worked at their public works department. I worked at the controller's office as an accounting supervisor. I've done investment accounting for the city's $2 billion portfolio at the time. So I really got a good feel for how local governments work, doing all the accounting and analyzing all those transactions and debits and credits for a city. Currently, I'm the director of finance for Denver Arts and Venues. We run all the city's theaters and Red Rocks Amphitheater, the Denver Coliseum, and cultural programs throughout the city, such as the public art program. So arts, culture, and entertainment is a big passion of mine. That's a little bit about my background and my financial kind of work I've done for the city. I got started really locally here in Wheat Ridge, working and volunteering at the Carnation Festival. I met a couple of people that are active in local government there. There was an opportunity here to take over and be appointed as a role of city treasurer. And a lot of my background and work that I've done in Denver really suited well for this new position here in Wheat Ridge. So I was happy to be appointed. I ran last time and was elected to be city treasurer. From there, I've made various improvements in the city's investment portfolio, and I'd like to have the opportunity to continue that good work and do good things for the city of Wheat Ridge, because it's really a passion of mine, the city, and I'm just so impressed by the city staff and the city manager. As someone who's worked for a big government for a long time, I can tell you we have a great government here, and the work that they can do is just so efficient. I'm blown away by the speed and efficiency by which Wheat Ridge gets things done. It's much different than Denver and the things I have to deal with in my day job. So,
Thank you. As you would guess, we had some questions prepared for you, so we'll go ahead and ask the questions. What do you love most about living in Wheat Ridge, and what steps would you take in your position to preserve and protect those things?
I think what I really love is a lot of what was said before, that small town feel that we have here in Wheat Ridge, right in the middle of a big city. I love that this isn't Arvada and it's not Lakewood, that we are uniquely Wheat Ridge, unapologetically Wheat Ridge. We do things a little bit different here. Whether it's the small businesses along our major corridor, the green belt, the rec center that's just regionally well known and really sought after. A lot of people just come in from the whole area just to visit our rec center because it's so amazing and so well equipped. What I'm really passionate about, what I can do is that I'm not, there on the dais kind of voting on certain things, but I support the work of the council and the city manager indirectly by the work that I can do to help the city raise more money with smarter, more efficient investments. I have worked with the finance administration team to identify investment strategies on our bond funding so that we can get a little bit more investments out there to supplement projects and get a little bit more out of those dollars that can be used as contingency for those bond projects as well. So I may not have a frontline direct role like some of the counselors do, but I view myself as kind of that back office support, which really is the grease that keeps the wheels running in many aspects.
Thank you. What do you believe are Wheat Ridge's most urgent challenges, and what steps would you take from your position to address those issues?
I think that a lot of the issues that were said before with respect to affordability, that translates to people that are experiencing homelessness, and even the basic resident that needs to go to the store and try to fill their basket for the needs of the needs of their family for the week. During the pandemic, we were kind of surprised that sales tax revenues had gone up, and we were pleasantly surprised. But one of the observations that kind of struck me was that, you know, people are going to grocery stores, they're buying some things, and, you know, was that an indication that things were better? I think it was an indication, really, that inflation has caused prices to go up. So perhaps sales tax went up 5%, but also inflation's up 8%. So a normal basket of goods is going up a lot more than most people could afford at the time. So those are some concerns that I have. Cities run on sales tax. So the revenue that we need to continue to provide these critical services, like the police department and all of the departments in public works and parks that keep the city running and our streets plowed, those are largely driven on sales tax revenue. So we need to make sure that we have a good economic base in the city, such as the grocery stores in various locations. People asked us, how did we get through the pandemic? And the answer was the grocery stores really put us through, because people kept going to the grocery stores and buying the foods that they need, and they weren't out at the restaurants and so forth. So having a good economic base is very important, and something that I feel that I can do directly in my role by supporting the city's economic initiatives, and also working with local businesses to identify ways to stay in business, and various funding and grant opportunities as well.
Thank you. That leads nicely into our next question. What steps would you take to put Wheat Ridge on a firmer financial footing?
Personally in my role, I've taken the city's investment portfolio, which I think it was like a stool with 2 legs. It kind of had a highly liquid section of the portfolio and a little bit less liquid investment portfolio. Since then, I've introduced 2 additional aspects to our portfolio. The first one is a term product which allows us to invest our dollars in a local government investment pool that would give us higher interest rates by going out up to about a year. In addition to that, we identified another opportunity for us to invest dollars a little bit longer into a 4th possibility, which would allow us to make investments out over a year up to the 2 to 5 year range. And what we've really done is given the city a balanced portfolio between all those different investment opportunities. So what that does is set up the city for a long-term stability with its investments, and it would be less susceptible to things like the ebbs and flows of interest rates fluctuations. Currently, as many people know, we're in a very high interest rate environment, and that's good for revenues, but it's also not great because our expenses are climbing a lot faster than our revenues are in many aspects. So I think that those changes in the investment portfolio has really set up the city for long-term stability with respect to its investments, and also allows us to have better financial forecasting and how we're going to plan and budget those dollars in the future.
Thank you. What are the most important skills needed to be an effective city treasurer, and how would you rate your own skill levels in this area?
I think that an individual needs to have some background in a strong financial acumen. I feel very lucky to have had the opportunity to have a lot of experience working in an investment portfolio at a major municipality. And I've leveraged a lot of that experience in this current role, and it's helped me identify opportunities for improvement in many ways. In addition to not only the financial aspects of this job, there is also a ombudsman role, I'll call it, a taxpayer advocate position. While not many cases have come to me for consideration, the city charter identifies the city treasurer, or grants him the authority to review and kind of settle disputes between taxpayers and the city. So I think that what's important about that aspect is that there's representation of the city, the people of the city, and they trust the treasurer to really identify the various aspects of the case and look at the charter and the rules and listen to the city side, listen to the taxpayer side, and try to come to an agreement that is fair and equitable for all sides. So that is a really important part of the treasurer and his job, in addition to just having these financial responsibilities.
Thank you, Chris. In November, voters will be asked to approve or deny extending the existing half-cent sales tax to fund sidewalks, bike lanes, and street improvements, among other things. Can you tell us if you support extending or denying the sales tax and why?
Oh, I absolutely support extending the sales tax. I was lucky enough to participate in some of the project identification sessions, although it was the city council's aspect. They let me participate, and I kind of viewed my role as an informed citizen on that process. And what I really loved about the projects that were identified was that they impacted every corner of the city. It wasn't just a particular project or area that has problems. It's the rec center, it's major corridors all throughout the city. So I feel that this particular bond measure will have impact and positive great things for all aspects and corners of the city. So that's why I really appreciate it. On a particular note, I live in District 3, not too far from 38th Avenue, and I walk and ride the bus and have gotten off at that turnaround there at Applewood Shopping Center and have had to walk home in the snow many times. And sometimes there's so much snow on the sidewalk you have to walk in the street, and it's dangerous and it's scary and it's dark. And I've seen an accident where someone actually unfortunately passed away because there was no curb and gutter to kind of keep them in the street and so forth. And as a pedestrian, as someone who uses RTD to get to work and so forth, I cannot be happier that this is on the ballot, and I absolutely plan to support it and vote yes.
Thank you. It's time for your closing statement.
Thank you. I would like to address the fact that there's no one sitting next to me, and I'm running unopposed for this position. I think that I take that as a compliment from the people of Wheat Ridge that feel that I've done a good job and have the faith in me to continue to do the good work that I've done. And while I've done a lot, I still feel like there's a lot to do. Even before I started with this job, there was a question about whether or not this position was really needed or necessary. I feel that it's important and that the city charter has it for a reason. Representation of the people is important. However, I do also feel that having someone here that is qualified is also a very important aspect of this role. I'd like to think that I'm qualified, although I'm really hard on myself and there's always things that I could do better. And I think to myself, did I make the right decision? Did I invest in this too early? Could I have made more for the city? And I always can second guess my position sometimes. That said, there has been discussion on whether or not this position should continue to exist. And I feel that it is really, it's not about me, it's about the city. It's what's best for the city. And if the council in a future iteration should ever saw so fit to reconsider this position and ask voters to change it from a elected position to an appointed position, I fully would support that, because I believe that having someone here in this role that knows what they're doing is more important than having an elected official that may not have the background and expertise to do a good job in this role. So that's really what I'd like to leave everyone with. I have a passion for Wheat Ridge, and I think that it is more important that we are successful here at Wheat Ridge than having an elected official in this position. Thank you.
I want to applaud everyone who's taken the opportunity to run as a candidate. It's important that we all participate in civic life, and to step forward and take that time is very, very important and grateful. That's all for our candidates tonight. We've been asked, oh, I'm sorry, my apologies, I had that on. Again, I wanted to thank everyone who's running as a candidate. It takes courage to step forward and be a candidate, but it's important that everyone participate in civic life. That's all for our candidates tonight. And again, we want to applaud our candidates for stepping up and running for office and supporting the city of Wheat Ridge. Now we've been asked to provide some information on the ballot issue. When you get your ballot, you'll be asked to vote on a revenue issue. In 2016, Wheat Ridge voters approved a half cent per dollar increase in the city sales tax rate to fund 4 projects: improvements to Anderson Park, the I-70 on-off ramps for the Clear Creek Crossing development, widening of Wadsworth Boulevard, and public infrastructure improvements and amenities for the Wheat Ridge Ward Light Rail Station. The $38 million cap for the 4 projects was reached in 2023. On August 28, 2023, the Wheat Ridge City Council approved asking voters to approve or deny an extension of the half-cent sales tax. This November, Wheat Ridge voters will be asked if they would like to extend the existing half-cent sales tax to bond $75 million to fund the following: sidewalks, bike lanes, and street improvements on primary street corridors such as 32nd Avenue, 38th Avenue, and 44th Avenue, and Youngfield Street. Filling sidewalk gaps throughout the city with an emphasis on major pedestrian corridors and routes to schools. Drainage and floodplain infrastructure improvements throughout the city. Here's a summary of the positions submitted by folks for and against the ballot initiative. Those supporting the issues note the following: this is not a new tax, but an extension of the existing half-cent per dollar sales tax in place since 2016. The money for the 2016 issue was well spent. This is a long-term investment in critical infrastructure projects in Wheat Ridge. Investing in bike lanes and sidewalk improvements is about crafting a city where walkability is a way of life, making our streets safer and more inviting, encouraging active lifestyles, and connecting our businesses, schools, and neighborhoods. Stormwater and drainage improvements will ensure resilience. We can remove homes from the floodplain list, shielding residents and properties from potential disaster. Throughout community outreach efforts, the project lists were determined by the people of the city of Wheat Ridge, not city staff. The decision to seek an extension of the half-cent sales tax was a direct response to resident feedback. 79% of voters expressed their support for this effort. No comments opposing the issue were filed by the constitutional deadline. Thank you all very much for attending tonight. This will conclude our forum. The League of Women Voters offers voter access to the free online election voter guide at vote411.org. It will be available beginning October 9th. This interactive website provides voters the opportunity to compare candidates side by side for all races, along with pro-con arguments on all ballot initiatives that will appear on their ballots. We know that participation in local government by serving and/or voting is where we can express our collective values and protect and improve the quality of life for Wheat Ridge residents. So thank you. Thanks to the candidates for participating. We commend you for your interest in public life. And thanks to the viewers for taking the time to learn all they can about the candidates. Election Day is November 7th. All active voters will be mailed a ballot on the week of October 16th. For drop-off box locations, as well as the nearest polling center, go online to jeffco.us/elections. If you choose to mail your ballot, be sure it's mailed early enough to arrive no later than 7 p.m. on November 7th. To be safe, consider mailing it on or before October 30th. Voter service and polling centers will open on October 30th. You can visit them to register to vote, update your registration, get a replacement ballot, and cast your ballot, all the way up through Election Day. Questions concerning registration and ballot mailings may be directed to the Jefferson County Clerk's office at 303-271-8111. Thank you for watching, and be sure to vote on November 7th. Good evening.